to be, based on the evidence before us, an atmosphere that has engulfed the court of cavalier indifference to the expenditure of taxpayer funds.
I think the tour puts things in context, but more importantly, items that we know were paid for by state money are not present in the Supreme Court offices of Justice Law Office.
I didn't feel it was my place to question the legal opinion of a Chief Justice.
Supreme Court determined upon, as you have heard from Ms. Troy and Mr. Canterbury, to pay these judges in excess of the salary of a sitting circuit judge.
What will be taken up today is a series of proposed articles of impeachment. Those articles include each and every justice that's currently serving in our court.
Holding the powerful accountable. Eyewitness News starts right now with special coverage of the West Virginia Supreme Court impeachment proceedings.
And right now, those impeachment proceedings against the remaining West Virginia Supreme Court justices continue, with 12 of the 15 articles of impeachment passing, and 2 so far have been rejected, and others still being debated right now.
That's right, Callie. And you know, we use the word unprecedented a lot, but it really applies here, because if you go back through the annals of time, all the way back to the framing of the Constitution, there is no real comprehensive list where you can see when a state Supreme Court justice has been impeached. But if you do some cursory research, you'll find that it happened a couple times in the 1700s, a few times in the 1800s, but in recent history, really only twice. In 1994 in Pennsylvania, a Supreme Court justice was impeached because he was conferring with an attorney to help him decide his cases. And in 2000, the chief Supreme Court justice in New Hampshire was brought up on 4 charges and impeached, although he was never convicted of those charges in the state Senate. So really, this rarely happens, and certainly never has it happened in this type of situation on this level, this scope, where basically the entire top level of the judicial branch will be wiped clean. Of course, Menace Ketchum has already resigned, so he'll go down as having resigned and not being impeached. But the other 4 still very much on the hook. And as we proceed through this process, we'll see what eventually becomes of those other 4. As you mentioned, 12 of the 15 articles of impeachment have passed. 2 others have been rejected. They're now on that final article as they work their way through it. And also inside, behind me in this building, is the man who really kick-started this entire thing. Kenny Bass broke this story 9 months ago. And as we bring you in, Kenny, I want to ask you, and I don't send this your way as platitudes, I'm just saying it because it's fact. You were the one that started this entire process with your blue couch story. And when you brought that up in the newsroom 9 months ago, I remember that kind of like, oh my goodness moment where we all realized just how big this was. It's got to be surreal for you specifically to see how this has developed, and I know that it brings you no joy other than the fact that you did a really good job on it, but certainly interesting to see the way it's all developed. And we mentioned earlier that never in your wildest dreams did you think it would go this far with everyone on the court being on the hook, really.
There was no way to imagine it would result in this. We've done many stories over the years that make a difference, that make change, but many times we do a story, people get mad or outraged, and it fades away. This one has just been gaining momentum since last November. It's been an amazing series of events today as the House Judiciary Committee is considering 15 articles of impeachment, naming each and every West Virginia Supreme Court justice, alleging they are guilty of a number of offenses. The West Virginia House Judiciary Committee weighed in on 15 potential articles of impeachment against all 4 West Virginia Supreme Court justices.
There appears to be, based on the evidence before us, an atmosphere that has engulfed the court of cavalier indifference to the expenditure of taxpayer funds, to the protection of taxpayer-paid assets, and an almost incomprehensible arrogance that for some reason they are not a co-equal branch, but a superior branch of government. So what will be taken up today is a series of proposed articles of impeachment. Those articles include each and every justice that's currently serving in our court.
The articles were discussed and debated individually. The alleged offenses range from allowing senior status judges to be paid more than state law allows, to using state-owned vehicles and property for personal business, to extravagant expenditures on renovations and remodeling of the justices' chambers.
This article was about the overspending in Justice Lawfree's office, and I think what really makes matters worse to a lot of us is his denial of being involved with that spending. I think it makes the spending that much worse.
Justice Alan Lawfrey is mentioned in 7 of the articles. Right now, he's suspended without pay from the bench and is facing a 23-count federal indictment on charges of mail and wire fraud, lying to federal agents, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. Other articles of impeachment involve Justices Margaret Workman, Robin Davis, and Beth Walker.
The judiciary needs to have that supervision, but I believe it needs to be done at the will of the voter, that the appropriate remedy for overspending is at the ballot box. It is not in removing the entire Supreme Court and then the executive, after August 14th, appointing for at least the next 2 years a brand new court that is not answerable to the people.
Justice Dennis Ketchum retired last month. Last week, prosecutors said Ketchum agreed to plead guilty to 1 federal count of wire fraud stemming from the personal use of state-owned vehicles and fuel cards.
This is indeed a sad day for the state and certainly not a cause for anybody's celebration, but this is a serious undertaking that we've been tasked with. I think the committee has taken that task seriously.
So they have decided on 12 of the articles that they will pass. 2 have been rejected. The final one they're considering revolves around Justice Lawfrey, one of the 7 articles naming him. It talks about him lying to the House Finance Committee, and also they're talking about amendments where many articles were framed and paid for by state tax dollars. But on a tour of the office, those framed items in many instances weren't there in Justice Lawfrey's chambers. So they're trying to add an amendment to that article, which would add to the charges and would be the 13th one approved or the 3rd one rejected. But it is Article 15, the final article they're going to consider today. Once it leaves here, it'll go to the full House, which could convene as early as next week, maybe Monday, or more likely Tuesday. If the full House approves of the decision by the House Judiciary Committee, all they need is a simple majority vote in the House. It would then move to the Senate, where a 2/3 vote of those elected, 23 senators, would be needed to proceed. And then again, 23 senators would be needed to find any justice guilty and start the proceedings to remove them from office. We'll keep you posted. Reporting live here at the state capitol outside of the House chambers, Kenny Bass, Eyewitness News.
All right, Kenny, thank you. Where those frames went, just one of many questions we still have as we move forward in this process. As we mentioned, we're heading places we've never gone before, and that includes not only all of us, but also lawmakers who are trying to sift through these waters as well. Eyewitness News reporter Bob Aaron continues our team coverage after speaking with some members of the legislative branch today to get their take on all of this. Bob?
The proposed decapitation of the judiciary, one of the 3 branches of the government, is highly unusual. And we're just a few minutes away, apparently, from the committee completing its work, the judiciary. And that's going to move us into some uncharted territory. Now, I spoke with several lawmakers this afternoon, including Delegate Rodney Miller. He is one of the case managers on this impeachment proceedings, and we talked with him about possible consequences.
It's not a pleasant day for the state of West Virginia. Getting into potentially what could be a constitutional crisis in this state, I don't think there's anyone that can be happy about this type of situation, regardless of the ultimate outcome. This is not a good day for our state.
An entire branch of government is unprecedented, obviously, but here's what we do in West Virginia is solve problems, and when we encounter these problems, we will fix these problems.
My hope is that if this impeachment goes through and we have a clean and start clean with the Supreme Court, that the governor of West Virginia will call for a special election and have those people elected and not take the czar route of appointing 4 people to the courts.
Of course, we don't know what the outcome of that will be if the trial occurs. The full House would still have to vote, but it's been a very unpleasant day, and lawmakers think they'll have more unpleasant times ahead as this case moves forward in the legislature. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we are very close to finishing up on all these articles, and that will clear the way for the entire House to come in here and decide whether they're going to move this thing forward. Reporting live at the state capitol, I'm Bob Aaron for Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Bob. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice today saying what's happening at the Capitol is certainly going to leave a bad mark on the Mountain State, regardless of the outcome. He does say that he has himself tried to stay away from the investigation just to separate the executive branch from the legislative branch, but he does admit that there have been suspicions circulating for some time about what's been going on that high bench.
You know, it's hard to comprehend. It's hard to understand why, but at the same time, we'll get through it, and we'll get the integrity to where the integrity ought to be, and we'll get through it. But it's a sad day.
Sad indeed. And as Kenny mentioned earlier in this newscast, this is a process, one that we're right in the middle of right now. So where are we at? Where do we go from here? To further break down the specifics of that, let's send it over to Eyewitness News reporter Sean Delancey, who continues our team coverage live on Capitol grounds. Sean?
Yeah, Rick, House delegates have already put in a lot of work over the last couple of weeks here in the Judiciary Committee, but we're still virtually at stage one in this entire process, and there's a whole lot of work left to be done by just about everyone here at the Capitol. House Clerk Steve Harrison says that once the Judiciary Committee completes their work, most likely this evening, all of the articles of impeachment will go before the full House body for a vote. There it will take a majority vote to impeach or not impeach based on the articles presented to them. And if they vote to impeach, everything then moves to the Senate. House managers will then become like prosecutors presenting the case to the Senate body, who will act as jurors considering whether or not to remove any of the justices who've been impeached. Now, that takes a 2/3 vote in the Senate to actually remove anybody. Harrison says it's going to take a lot of time before this is all said and done.
It's happened rarely in the history of the state, so yes, we do want to go at a pace at which we are sure that things are being done right, because this is a serious matter.
Harrison says the House Judiciary will likely wrap up in the next couple of days, most likely this evening. The full House should be convened sometime in the next week, and then the timeline is really up in the air. He says this really hasn't happened enough in state history to get a good grasp of how long the full House and Senate considerations will take. Long story longer, Rick, if you're interested in the fate of all of the 4 remaining justices here, what exactly is going to happen to them, you might have to settle in and be patient. Sean Delancey, Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Sean. And just since we began this newscast, we have received word that they are finally through that 15th and final article. They have passed that final article. So the final tally, 13 have passed, 2 were rejected. The House will now reconvene next Monday at 10 a.m. 2 important reminders as we work our way through this. Number 1, a date, August 14th. That has been called the hard deadline to get this finished so that they could get justices on the ballot for the November election. If it proceeds past that, most likely Governor Justice would appoint the people if this ends in impeachment. We don't want to put the cart before the horse. But another thing to keep in mind is that if there is an appeal, if this ends in impeachment, the U.S. Supreme Court has historically not taken up matters that have to deal with state constitutional rights. So most likely, and again, we don't want to make projections here, but whatever happens inside this building and under that dome is likely to stick. So we'll stay with you throughout the entire process. Again, the House reconvening Monday morning at 10 after passing 13 of the 15 articles of impeachment. I'm Rick Lord. We are live at the state capitol, and we will be back with more Eyewitness News right after this.
Well, as it turned into a very stormy late afternoon and evening around our area. In fact, we have a flash flood warning in effect for Braxton County until at least 7:30. Been getting a lot of problems here around the Sutton-Gasaway area. And that's because of about 2.5 inches of rain that fell in this zone in just about an hour. So all that quickly flowed its way into the streams and creeks. Route 4 is closed from I-79 ramp exit 62 to the far end of town in Gasaway. So keep that in mind. You can't get off the exit ramp there. 3 feet of water on the road there, and several rock slides and mudslides have been reported along Route 4. Also several spots along Route 4 over in the Sutton area. Also closed due to flooding. So this is a trouble spot, and it's going to remain so. Fortunately, the worst of the rain has exited that area. That storm is now down around the Summersville area pushing east. Another one, we're hearing it here in Charleston, some thunder rumbles. We're about to get another downpour pushing through here. This band of rain extending along I-64 back through Taze Valley. This is some heavy rain, some thunder and lightning, but it's nothing severe, and it is moving off to the north to the east. So heading into Charleston downtown here shortly. Eleanor, Pocatalico, Sissaville again will get hit again. You folks just had a storm storm a little earlier, and Blunden just before 7 o'clock. The real heavy stuff is over toward the Scioto Valley. Boy, been getting rocked here with several rounds of some very heavy storms, a lot of thunder and lightning. The north edge of this is crossing into Gallipolis and Point Pleasant. So heads up Mason County Fair there for some rough weather coming through into Pomeroy and eventually into the Ravenswood area by about 7:30. And then right here through Portsmouth, we've had about 2.5 inches of rain in Scioto County. Down into Greenup County, very heavy rain in Carter County. In fact, northern Greenup County been getting some signatures here, 40, 50-mile-an-hour gusts near Franklin Furnace. So that's a pretty stout stell there right along the Greenup-Scioto County border. And this is all tracking off to the east at about 20 miles an hour. So this will reach Ashland by about 7:15 and Huntington just before 8 o'clock. Some heavy rain, thunder, and lightning here as this tracks its way east. If it holds together, it would reach Charleston by 9, but it may fall apart a little bit. We'll start to see a weakening trend toward midnight as these scattered storms sort of fall apart. We'll fall back to about 71 degrees. Tomorrow, though, another active day. More showers and storms are likely to flare up. It's going to be another numerous storm day in the afternoon, so keep the umbrella close. We're going to have to watch out for some high water. I think a flash flood watch is likely to be issued here on Wednesday. Then isolated storms Thursday and Friday before we see the rain chances pick up again into the weekend and early next week.
Voters in 5 states heading to the polls today. Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, and Washington State all holding primaries. But the special election in Ohio's 12th congressional district is taking on particular significance. The fight over a vacant seat in the House in what should be a Republican stronghold has turned into a dead heat, putting the historically red district at risk of turning blue. Republicans are desperately hoping to hold on to the seat left open by the unexpected resignation of Pat Tiberi. But upstart Democrat Danny O'Connor has been surging in the polls due to a surge in national fundraising and has drawn the race against Republican State Senator Troy Bolderson into a statistical tie. While many believe the race could indicate the Democrats' chances of retaking the House in November, Ohio's House Speaker Ryan Smith, a Republican from Gallia County, disagrees.
I think it's a good indicator of excitement and where our bases are, but it's not to say that I don't necessarily think it'll extrapolate as to how it affects us in November. People are used to voting in November, and it will be a time that everybody will be solely focused on that.
Smith believes the race will be close, though, because both political parties have spent a lot of money on this race. No matter today's vote outcome, it's nothing more than a trial run. Both candidates will be back on the ballot in November, but the results from the special election could resonate far beyond Ohio. We'll be tracking those numbers as they come in tonight. Polls close at 7:30. We will have complete coverage on Eyewitness News at 10 and 11 and on our website. New at 6, how the Kentucky Health Commissioner is working to prevent the spread of hepatitis A. Students and staff returned to school in Johnson County, Kentucky today. School officials say this morning got off to a great start. The Johnson County school system is comprised of 5 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school, and an alternative school program. Opening day for staff was yesterday, which featured several students showcasing their academic and athletic accomplishments and a message from the superintendent. Kentucky Health Commissioner Dr. Jeffrey Howard visited local health departments today, including Carter and Boyd counties. The purpose of today's visit was to get out and see the work being done by health departments at the county level. The commissioner also stopped by some local restaurants to see how the Hep A outbreak is affecting workers. He says so far there are 1,276 cases. His goal is to help break some of the barriers local health departments are facing.
You should know that our staff is constantly working. We have a group of epidemiologists and immunization staff who are working on the outbreak, providing guidance, trying to remove barriers. That's what I've coached my staff to do. At the state level, our job is to remove barriers, administrative barriers that prevent people at the local level from accomplishing what they need to do to serve and make healthier populations in their communities.
The commissioner plans to continue to travel and visit other health departments all across Kentucky tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Mark Barton. The Marshall football team is looking for a new man behind center in 2018, and you will meet one of the candidates when we return here on Eyewitness Sports. And welcome back to Eyewitness Sports here at 6. Great to have you along. Preseason work is ongoing in Huntington as the Thundering Herd of Marshall gets set to begin the 2018 campaign on September 1st against Miami of Ohio. The Herd practiced for the first time on Friday. Among the fresh faces for the Herd this season will be at the quarterback position. 3-year starter Chase Litton departed early for a shot at the National Football League. There are plenty in camp hoping to nail down that spot, including Wagner graduate transfer Alex Thompson, the young man who has 2 years of eligibility remaining as a college player, got a chance to hit the field for the first time in that Friday practice. He discussed the early stages of his Thundering Herd career.
Yeah, you know, the first couple of practices have been fun. It's been a little different, you know, with the new scenery and everything, but it's been fun. We're just looking forward to Miami, Ohio, week 1. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with Coach Cramsey, you know, getting to know him throughout the summer and everything. You know, I talked to him a little bit throughout my recruitment and everything, but getting to know him in this summer, how he calls plays and everything, you know, it's been fun. I'm just looking to move forward from that.
He's done a really good job picking up our offense. He understands what we're doing inside and out for the most part, so we look forward to having that battle go on between him and Isaiah and Garrett and whatnot, and try and see who can really take it the next step and be for sure the number 1.
4 weeks from today, we play the game, you know, so it's hard to believe. So it's happening quick. It's getting upon us quick. But we'd like to get to the point where we got 2 or 3 weeks of preparation where we have our quarterback in place.
I have South Charleston and Winfield for you tonight on Countdown to Kickoff. That's Eyewitness Sports at 6.
Insurance would like to thank all of you who donated school supplies to this year's Tools for School campaign. We are overwhelmed with the support we received. Because of your generosity, area students will now have the school supplies they need to succeed at the start of this new school year. We look forward to strengthening the West Virginia schools and communities in which we live and work. From all of us at Brick Street, thank you for helping Tools for School.
That's going to do it for us here on Eyewitness News at 6. We'll see you over on Fox in just a couple of minutes.